Hello everyone, Matt from Model Minutes here and welcome back to the workbench for another unboxing. This week it is the Spitfire Mark 5B/C Tropical in 1/72nd scale from PM Model. So join me as I take a look inside this box and see what this kit is like. So starting off on the outside, we're met by the familiar artwork which PM Model is currently doing on their kits. So it's a rather attractive image of the Spitfire Mark 5B in its tropical scheme. Flipping over to the other side of the box, you can see we've got the exact same artwork as before. Up the top here, it indicates that we've got 3 different countries, so I'm guessing there's 3 different paint schemes inside the box. 1/72nd scale down there, and it tells us that this is PM101. On the edge here of the box you can see that we've got some more kits from the PM Model range advertised to us, and they do make some interesting subjects. And flipping over to the other edge we have our safety information, and it indicates that this is suitable for collectors older than 14 years. It tells us here that it's imported by Bachmann Europe. On the short edges of the box it has the same information as on the front, but you can see that I've got a price label of £5.50. Bit of a shame that there's no dimensions or a part count on the outside of the box, but let's get inside and see what we have. And everything comes sealed in a plastic bag, so let's get that open. And as per usual, let's take a look at the paperwork first. So the very first thing that catches my eye is the sort of postcard kind of artwork insert that PM Model include in their kits. It's quite a nice addition. Not really sure what I'm going to do with it. Could, like I said in the previous video on the Yak 15, make a collage out of them, or and then put them on my wall. But it's not a bad addition to the kit. It's almost like a little bit of a souvenir. Let's move on to our instructions, and it would appear that these are also printed in colour, which is fantastic. So on the front here we've got some information about the actual Spitfire Mark 5B and C, and then turning over we have our painting instructions on this side and our assembly instructions on this side. So assembly instructions 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's only 6 steps. So we start off by assembling our propeller and spinner. And it looks like that if you're careful, it shouldn't be solid. It should be able to freely rotate once you insert it inside the fuselage. So join the fuselage together. Absolutely no indication of any parts that go inside the cockpit. No pilot, no seat, nothing. It's just going to be an empty cavern. So quite a crude model straight off the outset. We add our wings, and our wings look like they are one-piece mouldings upper and lower, as are the tail surfaces. The canopy is glued into place along with the aerial and the engine exhausts and the tail wheel. And then for our landing gear, all you need to do is put your wheel onto the one-piece moulded landing gear leg, and it then gets inserted into its slot in the bottom of the model. And there are also the air intake / radiators on the bottom. So yeah, if you want to have this landing gear raised, and I already know how they've done this, you just don't put these parts on, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Not my favourite way of doing things, but that's the way that they've decided to do it. So on this side everything's printed in colour, and that's absolutely fantastic. I love it when model companies make their instructions, their painting instructions in colour, because it just makes it so much easier to try and figure out what you're trying to do. We have 3 paint schemes, one in the Turkish Air Force colours 1942, one in Royal Air Force 1943, and one in the United States Army Air Force 1943 North Africa. Supposedly this is a Mark 5C, and the rest of them are Mark 5Bs. All of the colour callouts are down the bottom, and they are in Humbrol, Tamiya and Guns Sangyo, which is a little bit different to the one I looked at, the Yak 15 earlier. I think that was Model Master colours, so it's almost like they can't quite pick who or what brand they want to use for their paint, but it's fine. I'll probably end up using Vallejo or something anyway. I would be inclined to do the RAF version because I think it looks a little bit more interesting with the red tips to the wings and the red spinner, rather than just having the standard brown, desert yellow and azure blue underneath. I think the RAF one looks a little bit more interesting. But yeah, let me know down in the comments which version you would like to do. So let's get rid of the instructions and look at the transfers. So as I'm sure you'll know, I'm not a massive fan of the PM model transfers. They generally are okay, but they're not the best quality. I worry that they're going to disintegrate. They are a bit thin. I'll probably use some micro scale liquid decal film over the top of them to prevent them from disintegrating whilst I apply them. Looking at the transfers then, generally the printing is okay. You can see we've got some walk outboard lines. The lines are a bit wibbly wobbly, they're not the straightest. I probably couldn't do much better with masking tape, but it's not the best printing that I've seen. Let's get a bit close on that, see if it focuses. Then we've got some printed numbers here. They're all right, they're not too bad. Then we move on to our roundels. The American ones are pretty good, but the RAF ones, ever so slightly picky. The red dots in the center of the roundels are ever so slightly out of registration. They're ever so slightly off to the right hand side of the screen, which is a shame. So if you can't get them perfectly registered, this is a comment for the manufacturers, then having them as separate dots is fine. I know I hate doing separate dots, so I'd much rather have them centralized on the transfer, but if you're not able to do that with your manufacturing process, then putting them as a separate red dot is absolutely acceptable. So they may have benefited from having a separate red dot for these ones, but I mean, I am being a little bit picky, and it's you have to kind of really be looking at it to notice that it is ever so slightly off center. The white lettering, you can't really see it unless you get the light on it just right. The problem there is that they've printed white on white, and there are some over here which you'd probably never notice. I get the light to there you go. Get the light to shine on them. You can see those are sort of some text. I think it's the name of the plane for the RAF one. Bit difficult to see. So yeah, I probably would have picked a different colour background paper to print that on, but that's just me. So all that remains to be seen is how well they apply to the model. The next thing to look at then are the plastic parts. So we've got 1, 2, 3 piles of parts, and in a little Ziploc bag we get the canopy. So let's look at the canopy first, and straight off the bat, let's see if this will focus. We can see on the inside that there is a bit of dirt just there, because now we need to go ahead and clean it. But generally the clear parts are crystal clear. There are a few little minor scratches and blemishes. There is a bit of flash. The molded details are effectively non-existent, so when you come to paint the canopy frames, you're going to have to possibly mask them or be very careful freehand, because they haven't molded the details on that we would like to see. Moving on then, let's look at our wing components. So all of these are molded in grey plastic. The plastic feels quite dense. It's a little greasy, possibly some mold release on there. It is a little bit dirty as well. The plastic isn't the cleanest I've seen. There is quite a bit of flash, excess plastic. The details are rather crude, and the details are of a raised panel line nature with a few little recessed bits in a few places. You can see on here we've got our molded on cannons and the stubs for the second cannon being a C-wing. They had the option to change out armaments depending on the role of the aircraft. And something that we were talking about earlier was the landing gear. And if you look here, you can see that the way that they've done the raised landing gear is to simply mould onto it the representation. Let's see if we can get the light to pick that up. There we go. You can see that they've moulded on a representation of the landing gear. So if you don't want the landing gear lowered, you need to fill in that hole and then paint this area here to make it look like landing gear that is raised. However, if you want your landing gear lowered, you probably have to, I don't know, there's no gear bay wells here. This is a very strange design choice, if I'm honest. But yeah, let's move on. We have our fuselage halves. Again, the detail situation is of the raised and very minimal nature. You can see that on this one here, it is quite dirty. It's I don't know if it's like actually in the plastic, that dirt. It's not great. Flipping over, and there's nothing on the inside. Some pretty heavy duty ejector pin marks there. Again, not the cleanest plastic I've seen, and a bit of flash that will need cleaning up as we go through the build. And then finally, all of the smaller bits, we've got our propeller here, which looks misshapen to me. It doesn't look quite right, possibly bent. Very thin plastic on that. Spinner, aerial mast, the wheels aren't detailed really. Just sort of a crude representation. Flash sort of everywhere. Tail surfaces, landing gear legs, ejector pin marks on a few bits here and there. Very crude engine exhausts. Yeah. A very simple and crude kit. So let's wrap this one up then. We've got 1, 2, 3 bits of plastic which make up the main part of the kit. Not overly complicated, quite simple to build, shouldn't take too long to assemble, but alas, it's not the best quality. The details are lacking, and there is quite a lot of flash, and the plastic seems to be quite dirty. We have one clear part, which again suffers from some dirt and poor detail. We have a large set of transfers for a PM model kit that I've seen so far, which is of a reasonable quality, but I do have my reservations, particularly the colour of the background with the white on white printing and the registration not being great. The instructions are a little bit better than the normal offering I've seen from PM Model, being printed in full colour. The decals are not numbered or anything on the painting instructions, but I think it's fairly easy to see which ones are which. And the steps themselves seem relatively easy to follow. And the last inclusion was our little souvenir artwork, which is quite nice to have. All of which comes contained inside the familiar box from PM Model. So let's talk a little bit about the history of this model. And as I'm sure it's no surprise given the crude nature of the parts, this is not a recent tooling. This is in fact a Pioneer 2 tooling from around 1982. But this particular version I've got here in my hands was originally first released in 2017. It has made an appearance in the PM model range a little bit more recently in the float plane version, which you can see was ever so slightly more expensive because it features some extra parts, which are these ones down here. For more information on this kit, take a look at the unboxing I've already done on that one.
Editing Matt here, and I just want to jump in quickly and point out something which I think I've discovered regarding this kit. So although I said that this is a 1982 tooling from Pioneer 2, it's a bit misleading because it looks as though it was in the Pioneer 2 range, but I actually believe that this is based on the original 1959 Frog Spitfire Mark II tooling. In 1959, Frog released that one, and then in 1968 they upgraded the tooling to be a Mark 1A or a Mark 5A, depending on, I presume, a few parts inside the kit. The reason why I say this is because when I was doing my research for this video, I discovered these images on ScaleMates of the parts for the 1A/5A kit, and I'm sure you'll agree that they look incredibly similar to the parts that I have in this kit now. So I'm not necessarily saying that this is the exact same tooling. At the bare minimum, I would hazard a guess that Pioneer 2 or PM Models took the original Frog 1959/1968 tooling and have upgraded it to become a Mark 5B/C in their eyes. Alternatively, they've done a crude copy of that tooling. Even down, if we look to the wings, you can see that the mounting holes are in the same locations for the landing gear and the radiators, and a lot of the surface details are the same as well. Naturally, the only additions that have been made are those cannon stubs and the blisters on the wings. So yeah, I'd be tempted to say that ultimately this is a 1950s/60s kit which is dressed up in a new box. So a little bit disappointing really that PM Model haven't annotated that information on their box. But anyways, back to past me to finish up the review.
But for this one though, you can see that I paid £5.50 for this one, which seems to be around the price that a lot of places are selling it for. Between £5 and £6 seems to be the RRP here in the UK at the time this video was edited. However, there are some people out there who are selling it for a little bit more, which I would be really hesitant to pay. This is not a high quality kit, this is a pocket money budget model. This is perfect for someone who wants to just build something quite cheaply, have some practice at painting, getting some transfers on, but it isn't really a serious model. If you wanted a Spitfire Mark 5C with a little bit more detail, a better build quality, I'd probably go for something like the Airfix version, which was a recently tooled kit, and I do have a video on that one somewhere on my channel as well. For me personally, I'll probably do the RAF version in a sort of back to basics kind of build, using hand painting techniques. So if you'd be interested in seeing that one, let me know down in the comments. And also let me know, was my assessment of this model kit fair? As always, quick shout out to my channel members and patrons for the extra support. A massive thanks to these guys on screen. And if you'd like to join them, take a look at the links in the description to find out how you can get involved. If you're new here and you'd like to see more videos like this, subscribing with notifications on will mean you never miss a modelling upload. And if you enjoyed this video, dropping a like would be greatly appreciated. Finally, the last thing to say is a massive thank you to you for watching this one, and I'll see you on the workbench again next time.